Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, good evening. My name is Joe Nagel, and I'm the 2019 chairman of the board. The purpose of this meeting is to review the 2020 proposed budget and tax levy and seek public comment and have discussion. What it is not for is to discuss taxable market values for specific parcels and property classifications are not topics for discussion. The 2019 values and classifications for taxes payable 2020 were finalized at the County Board of Appeals and Equalization meeting on June 10th, 2019. If you have questions regarding your individual property tax statements, meaning, and I'm guessing that's what a lot of you have questions about, the assessor, Ms. Sue Schultz, who will give a presentation here shortly, will go into another room and you can go with her and she can address your questions either there or make an appointment with you tonight or get a number and you can discuss how and when you're going to make that appointment, figure it out, okay? We will not discuss your individual properties here tonight, all right? So just everybody be aware of that. If you walk up to the podium and have a question about why your shed was measured at a certain dimensions, that is not what tonight is for, all right? Probably an oversimplification of an example, but that's not what we're going to discuss tonight, all right? If and when you do come up to the podium, please come up and give your name, your address. You'll have 3 minutes to address the board. If you come back up, you'll have a 1-minute rebuttal time. If the board members have questions or some specific answers, we'll allow some flexibility for some discussion between you and the board, all right? If with that, everybody probably understands what's going on now a little bit better. Ms. Schultz, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay? I'm not sure.
Pull it closer, you'll need to.
Is that better?
Yes.
All right, awesome. So this process actually started, this Truth and Taxation meeting and the tax burden actually started about 2 years ago. Our estimated market value that we established on your property for your 2019 assessment actually starts from the sales that occurred from October 2017 through September of 2018. So this process that where we're at right now, for our estimated market value, we're already looking at sales that are 2 years old. The process that we do is we verify all the sales that come in through our office, which means that we call the buyer or the seller, depending on the property, and make sure that the information that they recorded on their certificate of value real estate, which is what they have to file, that information is correct. We look at whether they have any personal property involved. We can subtract that out. We look at any kind of, if there was a relative sale, those sales get thrown out. We look at those sales to determine a ratio. Now, your ratio is determined by our value divided by the sale price. And what happens every year is we do what's called the sales ratio study. And we take a look at those values to what we have them sold, what they sold for. The median number has to be a minimum of 90%, and that's by state law. That's not by county policy. That is required that we have to be between 90 and 105% of the market. If that median number falls below 90%, that's what generates any kind of property increases or decreases depending upon what the market is doing. Those sales are actually monitored by the Department of Revenue, and they actually have the final say of whether or not those sales are considered good sales or bad sales if they're part of the study. If we meet a minimum of 6 sales and our ratio is below 90%, we are required to raise values up to get it above that 90%. So depending upon where that median ratio falls, if it's 85%, you're looking at about a 7% increase. If you're down in the 70s, you're obviously looking at a more significant type increase. If we don't do those increases, then the state will come in and do them for us. This is not an option for the county. This is by law, and we get state board orders in June if we don't meet those requirements. The appeal process is done in April, so in the end of March, in your tax statement, we send in our valuation notice. In that notice, it gives you our value, our classification, and then the dates of the appeals process for your valuation. And those are held the first part of April. After that, you do have an opportunity to go to June to the County Board of Equalization. Once that meeting is done, though, the values are set for that assessment year. The reason for that is that the taxing entities do use our tax capacity dollars, which is figured from your value to the classification rate, to determine what their tax rate is going to be. So they take our value, our taxable, it's called tax capacity dollars, and they take it against their levy, the budgets that they need, and they come up with a tax rate. I can lower all your values in half if a property or if a taxing entity needs more dollars for their property taxes, for their budgets, your taxes are still going to go up. Our numbers determines your share of the burden, but it does not determine your overall tax. So that's the reason why the appeal process is the way that it is. We have to be able to set the values by June and July so that the taxing entities can use those numbers to determine their tax rates. So at this point, what I will do, there's a room right across the hallway there. I do have a sheet of paper. I can answer some general questions about property increases in certain districts. Individual properties, I don't have access to any of your information. What I will do, though, is we will take your name and telephone number and your address, and we will have staff call you up to schedule an appointment or to review your property more thoroughly. So if anybody that wants to talk about their value with me, if you want to follow me across the hallway, we can do that.
All right, again, if you want to speak about your individual parcels, your properties, the issues you may have with them, this is where you need to go. We'll give it a few minutes to let the noise settle. All right. Next agenda item is our auditor treasurer, Connie.
Thank you. So tonight I am here to address with you this packet that's colored, the Truth in Taxation hearing. I will walk through some of the highlights of this packet. I'm not going to bore you with every page and every detail. You may take that home and read it at your leisure. I do have my contact information on the last page. Should you have any questions, you can reach me by email or phone. Okay, so, and as I always say each year, the contents, the only thing I want to say is the tax glossary. There are explanation of terms used throughout this document, so if you are unsure of what a term is, you could refer to that page. Okay, so pages 1 and 2, why property taxes vary from year to year. So I get many calls on market value, and especially the market value of other properties in your taxing district may change, shifting taxes from one property to another. And then also on number 2, I want to highlight that new construction in a taxing district increases the tax base and will affect the district's tax rate. The new construction for payable assessment year 2019, which is payable year 2020, Sue had detailed out for me before this meeting. It's $28,112,800. That is split between ag at approximately 2.6, residential at 15.5, commercial at 7.5, and apartment construction at 2.3. Those were all millions. The next reason, 4 through 8, are all, the budgeting process of your individual taxing entities. And then On page 2, I just want to mention that there are many things on here that are out of the county's control. The state legislature changes things, and there are federal and state mandates. Okay, so moving on to page 3, which is the property tax levy, tax base and tax rate page. The top section highlights just Minnesota, and then the bottom section highlights McLeod County. Oops, I keep hitting this. Page 4, who does what in the property tax process? So the assessor, the basic rule regarding statements is value and classification, which we have already alluded to. That's going to be the box, the top boxes in the right corner of your tax statement. Anytime you have a question on that, we will refer you to them. The taxing districts, the role are the assessments and the budgets and the levy. And then moving on to page 5, the role of auditor treasurer is the tax capacity calculations, tax calculations, the actual printing, proofing statements, distributing the settlements or the dollars that are from the levies back to the taxing entities, and then to collect, of course, for those entities. Page 6 details out what you should do if you think your property is overassessed. Sue went into some of these details. There's a 4-step process that you would visit the local assessor office, you would appeal to the Board of Review, and then appeal to the County Board of Equalization. That is in the last 2 weeks of June. And then finally, you would appeal to the Minnesota Tax Court. Pages 7 through 9 are Minnesota Department of Revenue classification rates. So those are rates determined from them. Payable 2020 classification rates range from 0.45% to 2%. And then page 9, I do want to highlight the agricultural homestead. So this year, the amount of the tier is $1,880,000, and that would be, so the first $1,880,000, you would be taxed at a rate of 0.5%, your classification rate, but after 1.8, you would be taxed at 1%. So this actually is a decrease of $20,000, which is now being taxed at 1% rather than 0.5% from last year. And the lower this goes, the more agricultural properties that are going to be affected by this. In fact, I had a taxpayer in today who was asking about it. He took his tax statement and he divided out what percent each section was of the levy, of the entity, I should say. And so one of his property tax statements was double what the other one was, and that's because his tax capacity was 50% higher than the others. So once your group of parcels, your multiple parcels hit that tier, then they're taxed at a 1% rather than 0.5%. So it's kind of confusing, but that's the way the state has it. It's just something to keep in mind. So page 10, I have the 2020 proposed tax capacities listed out for the 14 townships and the 9 cities. I won't bore you with all the numbers, but so in the 4th and 5th columns, the 2019 final and the 2020 proposed, we went from 38,608,661 to 40,670,918. And then the final percent on the bottom of everyone is, for 2020, 5.34. In 2019, it was 3.82, and in 2018, it was 2.29. So it has increased. Okay, page 11 is the taxable market value, net tax capacity, tax increment capacity, and local tax rate. So you will notice on row A, taxable market value. Some people also refer to that as a tax base. So in proposed 2020, You can see the numbers off to the right, and then these all fall in the chart below. This is all for McLeod County. So between the years of 2011 and 2020, that's all graphed out for you. McLeod County's 10-year local tax rate average is 56.825%. And then I would like to mention that between the years of 2011 and 2015, there were no levy increases in McLeod County, yet the rates, as you can see, fluctuated due to the decrease in either taxable market value or net tax capacity. So what I mean by that is you can see how that first arc is on that chart. And if you look up in row A, the taxable market value actually went down in 2012 and then up a tiny bit in 13, but yet our rates went up. Okay. And then on page 12, it's just listed how to calculate a property tax, and I think everybody can read that and understand that. I would like to mention, though, that when you do look at it and see determine the tax rate, like this is for the city of Glencoe, the total tax rate is 153.8170. That would include all of the taxing districts in that particular parcel where they're located, which would be Glencoe City, the Glencoe School District, Buffalo Creek Watershed, McLeod County, and a region tax. On page 13, I have listed how to calculate the residential homestead market value exclusion. I also do get a lot of questions on this, so that tax is, includes all homestead property less than $413,800. So once you hit that value, then there is no market value exclusion. So people always wonder why their exclusion goes down every year, and it's because their value is going up. And then at the bottom of the page is the agricultural homestead market value credit. The maximum credit is $490, and there is a calculation for that for you to review also. On page 14, we have the school building bond agricultural credit. This was enacted during the 2017 legislative session, so for payable 2018. The credit was established at a 40% rate of qualifying agricultural properties, NTC, multiplied by the school debt tax rate. So not all of the school's rate, but just their debt rate. Now, this credit, if you look down in the credit provisions, this has been increased to 50% of the qualifying property's net tax capacity, and it will continue to increase until 2023 when it reaches 70%. That was legislature just new this year. So page 15 talks about the statewide general tax, and that for payable 2020 is 39% for commercial industrial and 19% for seasonal residential recreational state general tax. Page 16 details out the exclusion of the first $100,000 of value of the commercial for state general tax. So the very first year was payable 2018, and you can see where throughout just McLeod County, the county was $513.17 less than in 2017. And then in 19, it was $125 less. And in proposed payable 20 so far, it's a negative $608,539. At the bottom, I have the bottom of page 16, I have the history of the state general tax rates, and you can see that those have also continued to decrease. So the next page, page 17, is the net tax levies by taxing authority. This is where I list all of the cities and townships, school districts, counties, special districts, and then the market value levy. I do want to mention, you can look at your, certain authority, whatever you want to see on there, and how much they increased or decreased. I do actually want to mention, though, that the school districts of 423, which is Hutchinson, and 2859, Glencoe Silver Lake, and I also believe 2687 passed some. Those referendum votes that passed are not included on your truth in taxation, your proposed statements yet. And you will note, if you look at your statement in the school district section, it will have some verbiage right above where the taxes are listed that your taxes may increase because they did have a referendum. At the time, we didn't know if they passed or not when I have to send it, but they definitely have passed. Page 18 is a chart of where your property tax dollars go. So all taxing authorities in McLeod County, the total for proposed 2020 is $64,993,027, and it was in 2019 $61,570,273, which is an increase of $3,422,754. Page 19, I have listed the rate comparisons by taxing authority, so you can see there's different rates between final 19 and proposed 2020, what went up and what went down. And then page 20, this page is dedicated just to county levies. So, excuse me. On the top section, I have listed a comparison of levies to neighboring counties. So you are able to see how much their levy changed. And then also, I have on here the 2018 estimated population. So you can see the levy per capita. So McLeod County, our levy did go up, increase by 8.9%. And the levy per capita per person is $687. You can see maybe Sibley County, their levy is 8.8%, and their levy per capita is $1,018 per person. I have also the ranking per capita off to the side here. I have noted on the bottom, right underneath that in the yellow chart, that in 2020, McLeod's per capita is $687, and our rank is now 29 out of 87. Back in 2016, it was 21, so we are getting a little bit lower on the scale. The midsection just compares similar populations to McLeod County. It is ordered in population order, but it also does end up being ordered in ranking order. But you can see the levy per capita in those there. And then at the very bottom, the proposed tax rates by county comparison to neighboring counties. I do, so McLeod, pay 2020, our proposed tax rate is 60.908%. I do want to note that if you go, so the Carver rate decreased here from pay 2019 to pay 2020. It went from 36.422 to 35.122, sorry, 121. But yet, if you look at the top of the page, Carver has a, their tax base did increase. So they went from 56.2, the pay of 19, to 59 million for proposed 2020. Excuse me. Okay, so, excuse me. Page 21, I have listed here the, it must be your chair mic. The 2019 final and the 2020 proposed tax impacts by classification. So in green off to the left is ag homestead, ag non-homestead, residential, and commercial. You can see when I did this last year, because there was such a switch from residential, or from agricultural to residential, see how it was so negative in 2018. But now it isn't that way. So everybody pretty much has increases on the page, except for commercial. So. And I think that was about it. I just had a tax glossary at the end that I had mentioned, and if you have any questions, you may call me or email me. Thank you. Excuse me.
We'll let Connie get a glass of water. And part of when you come up to ask the board questions, Connie will be here also. The next item of the agenda is Colleen Roback, our finance director. Colleen, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, so this portion is the 2020 budget hearing. And also the contents page will kind of let you know where to follow along, and I'll direct you to the pages. On page 1 is our 2019 organization chart with our elected officials and department heads. On page 2, this is our budget summary, and it shows the 2019 adopted budget that totaled $52,216,602 in revenues and had expenditures of $54,062,431. In 2020, our proposed budget that was adopted in September has revenues $54,245,604 and expenditures of $61,822,397, which is a net of $7,576,793. On page 3 is the beginning of the general fund by department. I'm not going to go through each of these departments one at a time. I will just point out a couple of items. So if you look at the countywide, the 003 at the top, you'll see the change on there was $416,682. We have in there budgeted for insurance runout, which I will talk about a little later. And then on the 013 court administrator, there's a difference of $187,900, and that's attorney fees, which I'll also touch on later. And then on the revenue side, you'll see under administrator, a revenue increase of $367,000. That's actually interest money that we've been gaining on the bonds from 2018. And then also on the elections, there's a difference of $67,470. That's due to the presidential nomination primary that we're required to hold. So going on to page 4, the government center, you'll see, excuse me, change of $43,000. That is for the utilities that we're currently having for the houses and the new building. And then on page 5, there's a little bit of restructure here on the environmental services. We used to have a block grant that was split out under Fund 25 because there was sharing requirements on that block grant in the past, so we had to separate it. For 2020, that block grant will now just be under the 609 budget, so that's why you'll see a revenue increase and also an expenditure. But then later in the special revenue fund, you'll see that those are zeros. Okay, then then we'll skip to page 7. This is the highway fund, and we have a proposed budget of $15,723,354, and expenditures the same amount. In 19, you'll see we're a little bit under budget on highway, and that is due to some road construction projects that have been delayed. And also just the timing of the road construction projects and when you get reimbursed from the state or federal on those. And then if you go to page 8, this is the solid waste fund. And that is reduced the amount of fund balance we'll be using in 2020.
by about $300,000 from the 2019 budget. On page 9 is social services budget, and that's a budget of $13,562,170 for both revenue and expenditures for 2020. Then if you go to page 10, now these are all special revenue accounts from pages 10 through 13. And these are, excuse me, departments that have been set up either because it's grant related and you have to keep the money from year to year going forward. So that is why, like if you look on page 12 now, you'll see shoreline grant, also the water resource management and wetlands. And then on page 13, you'll see the feedlot program. So we're still getting that funding. It's just now going to be under the environmental services budget for 2020. And then on page 14 is our capital improvement plan and our debt service. Then if you go to page 15, this shows our proposed 2020 revenue, income generated by fund. So $20,326,792 of that revenue comes from the general fund. $15,723,354 is road and bridge. $1,770,329 is from solid waste. Special revenue accounts, $785,531. Human services is $13,562,170. Debt service of $2,077,428, with a total of $54,245,604. Then on page 16, it's the expenditures for 2020 and how that's broke down. For the general fund, there's $20,122,628, and then it shows the breakdown of that by general government, public safety, public health, culture and rec, conservation and natural resources, and economic development. Then solid waste is at $1,924,753. Road and bridge, $15,723,354. Trailblazer Transit, $174,930. Special revenue of $788,718. Social services, $13,387,240. The regional library, $204,164. Our debt service of $1,941,610. Capital projects of $7,555,000. Then if you go to page 17, this is the outside organizations that McLeod County contributes to. So there's a listing there of all that have applied and what they've been allotted. Then on page 18, here is a list of the capital requests by department. And the total on that capital is $9,055,102. Of that, $7,555,000 is budgeted for the renovation of the new government center. Then if you go to page 19, this is the debt of the county, and as it'll be as of December 31st of 2019. So in total, we have $28,228,679,000 in debt, but of that, $16,190,000 is paid for by property tax levy. $2,985,000 of it is paid by the solid waste abatement. $2,140,000 of it is drainage bonds, so that's special assessments to the homeowners that have that are along them ditch lines. So in total, our $28,228,679 is 22.73% of our legal debt limit, which is $124,189,368. What? Legally allowed, yep. Then on page 20, here is a breakdown of the 2020 levy that was approved in September for $24,628,317, which is an increase of 8.9% from 2019. If we had, I know there was several years in here from 12 through 15, there was no increase. And also in 2011, there was actually a decrease of almost 3%. If there had been more of a steady increase along those years of 3%, our budget today would be at $25,327,276. But we are at $24,628,317. And then on page 21, I just want to talk about a few items that are affecting the budget. So item A, personnel costs for 2020 are budgeted at $23,880,733. This is an increase of $774,481 for wages and benefits over the 2019 budget. McLeod County is currently negotiating with its 8 unions for their 2020 through 2022 labor agreements. Item B, McLeod County is currently part of a joint powers agreement with Sibley County and Trailblazer Transit to provide health insurance to its employees through a self-insured plan. This plan has experienced high claim costs for the past 3 years. In 2019, McLeod County has made 3 payments totaling $582,230 to replenish the fund and cover claims in excess of premiums paid. In 2020, the joint powers will be restructuring, and McLeod and Sibley counties will join the Southwest West Central insurance pool. This will be beneficial to McLeod County and functions as a fully funded insured plan. McLeod County has budgeted an additional $415,000 for the run-out of the previous plan due to the poor claims experience. Item C, departments were instructed to keep their operating budgets the same as 2019 budget. However, some departments have increases that are outside of their control. The first one being court administration, we have an increase of $152,000 in court-appointed attorney fees. B, information technology has an increase of $78,000 in maintenance agreements. C, work comp and property casualty insurance costs are increasing by $69,000. Item D, the presidential nomination primary in March of 2020 will increase the election budget by $68,000. And E, building expenses for utilities and repairs for the courthouse building is increased by $40,000. D, the levy amount reflects a balanced budget for the general fund, road and bridge, and social services. In the past, we have actually budgeted to use fund balance, and we're trying to keep our fund balances at a successful level by having a balanced budget. Item E, the total levy increase for 2020 is $2,013,725. The breakdown is 38% wages and benefits, 20% health insurance runout, 24% additional debt payment, and 18% increased operation expenses. F, if McLeod County would not have implemented the local option sales tax for transportation, we were looking at a $3,500,503 or a 15.48% increase to the levy. So since we passed that local option sales tax, we hope to generate $1.9 million in revenue from that, which we were able to lower then to the 8.9% increase. Of that local sales tax, non-residents pay for about 35% of that. And item G, there's over $2.4 million budgeted for the county road construction in 2020. And it is the county's responsibility to keep our county roads in good working condition. And on the back page, what I have here is the new debt payment for the $4 million that was approved to bond.
All right, thank you, Colleen. At this point, we will open up for public comment. Again, we will not be addressing individual parcels for those of you that came in late. If you do want to talk about your individual property, Sue is across the hall, I believe. You can do that with her, the county assessor. Please come up and give us your name and address. Keep your comments to around 3 minutes. And we will do our best to answer your questions. If we cannot, because of lack of data that is at our fingertips, we will get that information to you through our administration office or the appropriate department. So at this point, I will open it up for public comment. The mics are, I don't know, for lack of a better term, sensitive, so please direct your voice directly into them so not only the board can hear you, but the audience as well. So at this point, the mics are open. Please come to the podium if you have a comment for the board or the people up here on stage. Anyone? This is the time. Hello.
Jennifer Moore, 21067 Nature Avenue, Hutchinson Township. And again, I would just appeal to you as a board to decrease the levy. I understand that there are payments to be made, but I guess what I didn't hear from anybody is how, you know, you're looking to save money or how the budget is being looked at to cut costs. I guess just for instance, the roof that I read about, the Jean-Claude building, you know, it still had warranty until 2026, if I'm not mistaken, but yet we're, you know, getting a new roof. I guess, you know, as a homeowner, that wouldn't happen. I just think, and two, I had looked up the median household income in McLeod County is $59,000, and so just personally, our taxes, you know, in 2030, if they continue on the way they are, we'll be paying over $10,000 in property taxes. So, you know, for a median income of $60,000, that's unsustainable. So I'm just asking you to reconsider, tell us where you're trying to cut costs, what you're trying to do to save our money as taxpayers.
Ms. Moore, thank you very much. Thank you for bringing that up. We've cut 12 employees over the last year, correct, Sheila?
We've not backfilled 12 openings through attrition, correct?
Right. And then the utility costs that we will be saving by moving to one building will be what?
Well, if we were going off of our 6-year average, the utility and maintenance totals just for not being in the Health and Human Service Building and the North Complex are over $300,000. Also with the staffing, not just with the 12 people being reduced, but also every time a position opens at the county, we don't just automatically post it any longer. We have become more efficient in the fact that we don't take a month to approve it, a month to review it, a month to bring it to the board. We are trying to help our departments out we've quickened that process up. However, we don't just automatically fill any roles. We stop, talk to the department. Any of our department heads that are sitting in this room or at this podium and table can tell you that. And through that, in 2019, we've had 1,874 days open without employees in positions while we've made sure that it's the right fit for the county and that we're spending wisely.
And the only other thing, I don't believe the roof is under a warranty at the Young House building at all. So the 2026, I guess I could be wrong. Well, we should look into that because I don't believe that's accurate, all right?
There was no warranty on the roof.
Right.
There may have been a life expectancy, and I'm just questioning, it wasn't 2026 either. I did not see the article. It was, I was involved in this, and there was initially
Thanks for
some
bringing that up.
costs that were, I didn't agree with, but by the time we get the building done, we were within 4 years of replacing a new roof, and the costs to do it now were substantially lowered from the initial cost. It was, in the long term, it was a no-brainer to put the roof on now.
So,
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
can I help with that? I'm sorry, I don't know the exact, is it Jennifer, about the warranty, I don't know the exact dates. However, I think what you might be referring to is the life expectancy of the roof. We were looking at 4 years when they were purchasing the building. By the time we move in, it would be 2. And at first, we were expecting $500,000 roof replacement cost with what we thought would need to be done. By doing it during the project, we've found a way to do it for under $200,000, I believe. Sorry if that's an incorrect figure, I'll contact you if it is. But it, like they said, a significant cost savings. That's why we're doing the roof right now and during the project. It's just to essentially save money over the long run. Both of the buildings, I believe, that we are taking out of service would need roof replacements as well if we did not, if we kept them and kept going with staff in those buildings.
Ron, did you have
Mr.
something?
Chair, yes, just to point out, in the renovation of the McLeod County Government Center, as I like to call it, there will be some substantial work done with utilities or equipment on the roof that would require, patching or, filling in different areas and so forth. So there's, we'd still be ending up doing some kind of work on the roof, and we'd just have a patched up job that we'd have to fix a few years later. The process now will be, we'll get all the work done, with the equipment on the roof, and then we'll replace the roof system and have one nice contiguous roof surface rather than, patching around as we change things up on the top of the building. So, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, but you
Yes.
asked about wages. Would you like to know about the trend over
Sure.
the last few years?
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. Well, we have been trying to save when possible, obviously. We don't always talk about that, and we should. So in 2016, we were at 98.9% of our budgeted salary, wages, and benefits, which that was 19.6 million spent. In 2017, we got that down to 95% of the budget. In 2018, 94, and for 2019 year to date, we look today, we're at 86.9% of the budgeted salary, wages, and benefits. So even though we have to budget for essentially the worst case scenario with employees and wages and benefits, especially with what you've all seen with the cost increases to benefits for not just yourselves, but the county, we still do our best to try and stay underneath that. And with being less than 87% for here at this point of the year, we feel pretty confident that we'll end under 90% of our budgeted for our actual spending on salary, wages, and benefits for 2019.
Paul?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I think when we look at our remodeled government center that we're moving into, that is possibly the greatest project that I have seen in many years of this board trying to reduce expenses. It's a long ways away from we need a different building. That is an effort to get to one location. Well, still have the courthouse, but our multiple locations, getting them down to one. We've already covered the utilities. The maintenance costs in several buildings is definitely in there. Health and Human Services buildings needs a considerable amount of work if we needed to stay there, and we've forgone that. We will now have the majority of our workforce in one building, which increases the opportunity that we have for cross-training and being able to utilize staff in more different ways than when they're spread across town or across county. Even when they have meetings, the time that's wasted at getting in a vehicle to drive across town will now be just to be able to go down the hallway. And I think that when we are able to, which will be a year and a half down the road, most likely to fully appreciate the effects of that, we'll be able to see that we will be able to achieve those reduced operating costs that we look forward to. I think one thing that we need to point out, though, when we try to talk about reducing county costs, we generate a service here. We don't make widgets. We don't make things. We can't outsource to a different factory. We have people that generate a service. A tremendous amount of that comes through our public health and social services, where many mandates are hovering over us as far as what we need to offer for programs. But if we want to seriously reduce costs, and I've said this so many times, this microphone, we need to find a way to get people off drugs, reduce the alcoholism, raise your own kids, quit generating crime and costing each other millions of dollars through that. And that is the avenue that the counties, so much of our expenses are hooked on. And so this is a choice that society has to make, clean it up or keep paying for it. And that's kind of where we're at. And I continue to harp on that. I don't know if it'll ever catch on or not, but those are the bills that we pay. And I think we've got 270, 80, something like that, staff that we have. And we're, we have to pay them what it takes in order to keep our quality staff and maintain them. And that's where we are today. And it's very hard to find cost-saving initiatives when you have federal and state agencies that tell you what you have to do. Fill out all these paperwork. There's a mountain of them for one applicant. How are you supposed to fix that? How do you fill out paperwork more efficiently? They can't. And that gets worse all the time. Very frustrating for our department heads and people that work in the departments, but that's what's expected of them. And so we continue to have that burden that hangs over us. But efficiency is really tough when it's all service-oriented from us, or for the most part.
Ms. Moore, do you have another comment?
Yeah, just another comment. I guess I like the idea of combining everybody in one building for more efficiency. However, that junk loss was a privately tax-paying enterprise, right? So it's taking away the tax base. Anyway, I don't want to get into that, but I did want to say about the wages, because I think I looked at the published county wages, like of whoever you publish in the paper anyway, they were 90,000 and 100,000 and above, for county wages for these different heads maybe. And again, the average household income, being at 59,000, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like that's household, again, not just one head of the department or whatnot. So that was another comment to follow up.
Thank you. Sir, you look like you wanted to walk to the mic. Do you have something?
Yeah. So,
So give us your name and your address and,
Jamie Marks, Morningside Avenue,
okay?
1114. So you guys started with a 15% increase, and then you dropped it down to 8.9%.
Yep.
You guys do realize we are the 15th most taxed county in the state of Minnesota. We're above Rochester, we're above St. Cloud, but yet you guys keep raising taxes.
Where did that data come from, sir?
Right off the state website,
Of what?
Minnesota Department of Revenue. We are higher than every county around us. You guys put down Carver as one of those. They got 3 times the people. They don't even compare to what we are. You can't compare us apples to apples, then why even bother?
I can take, it's been 9 months to a year now since I did this. I pulled some homeowner status and one business out of Carver County and compared the dollars paid. And Carver was again as high as McLeod. And one of them was
With
my
3
daughter's
times the
house,
people.
so it doesn't matter. The dollar paid by that taxpayer on those homes, now this was just property taxes, was exactly twice, within a few dollars, was in all instances was again as high as we pay here. You can't always judge the percentages, and you're absolutely right, there's more people there. But that, I don't know where that came from, that we're the highest.
Minnesota Department of Revenue.
Colleen just read to you from the state. I'll let Colleen, where'd you get your
Yeah,
figures?
well, I was just looking at the document provided by Connie on page 20. Like, I live in Sibley County, so per capita, I'm paying $1,018, where if I lived in McLeod, I'd be paying $687. So I think I'm in the wrong county, maybe, I don't know.
Well, maybe I'm in the wrong county then too, because I pay more taxes here than I did in Hutchinson for 1/3 the house.
Hutchinson's the same
Well,
company.
same county, so
Yeah,
it just
I know.
depends on the
How is
value
that
of your
possible?
home.
Why are we so high here?
Are you referring to the same year, sir?
What's
Are you
that?
referring to the same year of taxes?
2 different years. 1 year and then versus us moving here the next year.
So if the value of your home went up, it's all based on ratios.
Hasn't changed in 7 years.
The value of your home hasn't changed in 7 years?
We have done nothing. We haven't painted it. We haven't done anything.
That's the
No, not the
evaluation.
work that
But
you've
you're-
done, the value on your tax statement, as assessed by the assessor.
Well, you guys jacked it 20%.
There it is.
So, again, that's
what-
something to talk to
that's what
Sue
does
about,
it.
right?
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
My point is, why are we paying the same as Carver? They get much more than we do.
much more of what?
Carver
They've got
has a
better
much,
roads, they've got better schools, they've got better everything.
Carver has a much larger tax base, which I pointed out on
Exactly
page
my
20.
point.
They
Why are
have-
we hanging with them then?
What do you mean,
Why are we doing a
hanging
new
with them?
government center? Why are we spending all of this money instead of saving it and doing it properly?
Hanging with them.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Ron.
If I may address this. And, we've got to be, comparable to our neighbors. Granted, Carver County has a much larger tax base, but they've got a lot more commercial and industrial businesses going in Carver County. If we don't keep up the effort to be competitive with our schools, with our, communities at large, and the county and services, we're not going to grow, and our tax base will shrink, and will put us even further behind our neighbors.
So what do you think is going to happen as you raise taxes? What do you think is going to happen to the tax base? It's going to grow smaller as other people move out and decide to go somewhere else where it's cheaper to live, i.e. Sibley County.
Sibley is
Correct?
higher. She
Sibley's
just said it
higher.
was higher.
She just said it's lower.
No, she said it's
Sibley
higher.
County is higher. I live in Sibley County, and the tax capacity there per capita is 1,018
Yep. I had to
compared to
think about that,
McLeod
sorry.
687.
So, okay, so we're trying to keep the time limit down. Do you have anything else?
I just wanted to point out the fact that I don't think there's enough fiscal responsibility happening,
Thank you.
so.
Yes, sir. Hello, sir.
Hello, my name is George Dahlman. I live in Ham Lake. We have which is Anoka County, and we have a lake home up on Bell Lake.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to issue just a challenge to the board. I had called and received a great deal of budget analysis and went through it all. And it took until tonight for all of you to sort of look at each other and decide, here are some of the examples of what we saved. I think it would be very good if the board or one of the staff would, along with that budget, put out, this is what we did to save money. And articulate some of those, quantify those in some way. So, how much are you going to save by walking down the hall instead of driving your car across to the building? That's not very much, but it would be something. Right. But maybe you could at least educate us a little bit. I'll just point out a couple of things. It troubles me because how this budget, which was up just modestly, translated to me over the last 2 years of an over 30% increase in the taxes I pay to McLeod County. And that's difficult to swallow, and I'm hoping somewhere along the line that'll start to level out, because pretty soon I might as well just give you my house. And, as at the rate the taxes are going. But I think that's a reasonable challenge to make, is show us what you're doing to save money, not just showing us what you're doing to spend the money. And give us an idea that you're really, truly working in our favor.
I think you're right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think you're right, sir, that we could do a better job of that. Anyone else from the public wish to make a comment? Now is the time. The next item on the agenda is to adjourn. Hello, sir.
Yeah, Charles Vasek, the Stewart. I'm wondering when somebody in the government's going to be responsible for this stuff, because I can talk to the town board and they say, well, the county mandates it. We talk to you guys, the state mandates it. Is anybody in the 800-mile radius responsible for this stuff that's going on? I mean, it seems like this is the best job in the world you've got. You can pass the buck to somebody else, and then there's some guy in Washington that you can talk to, and you don't know who he is. And nobody takes responsibility. I got Walden Avenue out here. Are we stuck with the bill for redoing that one? They put the crushed asphalt on there, and it didn't work
Mr. Chair,
a couple
Yes.
years ago.
if I may.
Yep.
I can assure you, sir, that all of the financial decisions that come in front of this board are thought out very carefully. It may not seem like it every day, and it's a lot easier, I think, for people to say, how can you spend that when they're not the people responsible for making the decisions? But it's important for people like yourself, when you have input, to come to our county board workshops and county board meetings and give the input that they need if you think there are differences that should be made with those decisions. Maybe like a road or something that you've brought to your city that you feel hasn't been addressed. We often have our every other week meeting in front of no audience. And sure, it's on TV now and YouTube, which is nice and helpful for people who can't get out or maybe aren't able to make it because they're at work, so that they can watch it later and give us a call. But having the input from the public is very important to help them make those decisions because they are difficult.
Well, okay, let's just take the McLeod building.
Okay.
Okay, if I put up a shed on my property value goes up because I need a shed that will hold equipment from the 2020 generation. My shed is 1954. Now, I have to pay for a shed, my taxes go up. You buy the McLeod building, redo it because you might save a couple bucks here, I'm still paying for that. We're on the bottom end of the totem pole here. You're taking money from us right and left. I've got to raise my taxes, or my rent $50 next year just to pay for this, and Social Security said there's only a 1.8% cost of living increase. It ain't in the cards to last too much longer. And somewhere it's got to stop.
I'll address a little bit. All five of us that sit on this board pay the same kind of taxes that you do. So believe me, we do value every piece of information that we can get from people as to what we should or should not do. I've got properties and I've got a 20% increase in my taxes also.
Yeah.
We have to remember, part of your tax statement is school districts, city or township, plus the county. So the county is only about half of your tax statement. Just remember that all those other entities, we're the collector and have to pass it back to them. So that's just something to remember, that it's not only county taxes that is reflected on that statement.
Well, I'd just like to know who to talk to, because I've talked to a lot of the, from the governor and senators and whatnot, and it just, everybody passes the buck on a guy. It's so frustrating that you guys got to be the insulators in the deal here, because it just gets to you. Nobody's responsible.
I would like to add that last year, Wright County's change in their levy was 17.1%, and that's because they are actually building a new government center. They're not renovating, they're building. So it isn't going to help if you move somewhere.
Yeah, and I don't know how that pertains to anything. I've got a lot of friends in Wright County, and I work with Wright County people a lot. They spent $150 million on their government center in the last couple of years. How they do it, I don't know. They abandoned a perfectly good courthouse, but that has nothing to do with ours. I'm kind of proud of our McLeod building. To be honest with you, I don't like calling it McLeod anymore. It's our government center. We, as a board, collectively, at least a couple of us on here, we shopped that building. Personally, I did, all over trying to get it sold to some. There was absolutely no interest in buying that property. And if you did the math on it, the money we spent on that compared to some of the other buildings are going to go up. Hold our feet to the fire to the efficiencies. I see them coming. Even your example of one building, if we could have went and fixed one building, there's an argument. There's several buildings here. It's not driving across town. It's driving from here to Hutchinson, or possibly hoping with some of the new technologies that some of these meetings can be done via IT. And I'm old for that kind of stuff, and I'm doing it. And as far as accountability, almost on 3 times a week, I go to different meetings. I can't find any accountability. I agree with, does that mean I quit? No, I can't quit, but it's hard. I mean, elections have consequences, and I'm not going to get down too much of a partisan road here, but we can't get our nose under any state office to get any checking done. I'm sorry, people have to take responsibility for themselves. I think we've got one of the best boards we've ever had. Can you find some faults? Probably, but we work hard to try and have a united front. And, I mean, it's hard to say, here I am from the government, here, trust me, and I'll make it better for you. I don't know, but I see some super efficiencies coming down, and I'm not going to back away from that building, because just comparing it to the last version of Wright counties, they're spending $45 million on a like-minded building to ours. That's not true. I mean, liars figures lie and liars figure. But if we don't create a county, you know, you can go just in the figures given to us, and Colleen alluded to it. I mean, there was one year there was a levy decrease, and I wasn't here at that time, and I don't know why it was decreased, and then it held flat for several years. And we did the same with our insurance, and which gets us into a situation. But if we would have stayed with a modest increase over the year, we wouldn't be in this situation. But I guess my overall point, you're talking Wright County, you're talking Carver County. I mean, I didn't put us next to these counties. So you deal the cards that you deal the cards that you deal the cards that you have. If we don't create a county, I've been working hard with a number of other board members trying to get 212 out here. Is that going to be the save all? I don't know. It's going to help a lot. But if we don't have a county that people want to move to, we're never going to increase that tax base. I mean, we've got plenty of roads to fix, and some of it's trial and error. You're saying Falcon, I assume that's, it's Tagus, and that's been on a burr on my saddle since I got in here, but it is what it is. But I guess I mean, you obviously got another question, and I'd surely entertain what that is. Where I can find this accountability, I don't know. I can't find it from the governor's office to anybody. But we try to fulfill our needs and our unfunded mandates, and we have plenty of them.
All right. Commissioner Szymanski has a few comments. Go ahead, Ron.
Well, Mr. Vosik, you referenced the government center, and I just wanted to give a little background. 7 years ago, I came to this county board, and one of my objectives at that time was to bring county government to a central location as much as possible. And that vision 7 years ago was to build just to the east of the courthouse on what is now the parking lot and vacant property. When the Young-Claus property became available, I said, well, I would rather see the courthouse downtown. But back 7 years ago, when I first approached architects about what it would cost, how many square feet would we need and what would it cost, the estimate ballpark then was about $25 million. It would, I'm sure, be in excess of 30 or 35 million today if we were building it. But the problem with building downtown is that you can build a building, and we were looking at a multi-story building complete with elevators and what have you, but then you have to be able to park cars for all of your employees. That would have taken almost another city block just to put a parking lot downtown. When we looked at this property that was in foreclosure, we could acquire it, at a reasonable price, and the properties adjacent were part of the package so that we could put the whole deal together in one location. And, that was a great advantage, to McLeod County, and I think to the taxpayers of McLeod County, that we could put together this package for a government center that gets 80% or more of our staff into one location, but it also is a one-stop service location for our constituents across the county. So it's may not look like the best deal, but by comparison, as Doug alluded to, the other counties are putting up government centers, there. And I don't think anybody's building a Taj Mahal nowadays, but I think we're going to have a very nice government center when we're finished. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
That's first.
Hello, sir.
Hi, Tanner Isle, live in 1217 Lester Prairie, or 1217 Prairie Ridge Lane, Lester Prairie. I just moved in actually about a couple months ago, and I was actually kind of a little shocked to learn that I was paying a little higher than right, but that's just because Lester is starting to build a new school, so that levy's going up. But I did have a question of why, or if, two questions. How the rates are going is, it was 54%, 56, 58, now it's 60%. If we expect those to actually level off in the coming years when the levy is finally going to get paid off in 35, is it going to keep rising, or it's going to stay, or will it be expected to level off, anything like that? And the second question is, of what you expect to pay for generals and everything is about $23.25 million, and you have a proposed budget of $24.25 or $24.5. What are you going to do with that extra $1 million? Are you going to roll that over into the next year, or does that get spent again?
Colleen, I'm not sure I completely understand your question, but Colleen or Connie, it might be best suited for you and with your numbers there. I think you're asking if we can predict if things are going to level off. No, right? But, you know, what Colleen talked earlier about is if those 0% are when we dropped it down, those boards of the past, and we can't look in the rearview mirror. If they would have stuck at 2.5 to 3 over those years, right, we'd be at the same amount right now.
Okay.
Roughly, correct? So would it have stayed level? Would we have done the same things? I don't know, right?
So the way things are going, it will just continue to keep going up.
Mr. Chair, I don't necessarily
say
agree
that.
with that, because I'll just carve out, and Colleen can help me, but I'll carve out the transportation part of this. We dropped the wheelage tax and put on a 0.5 cent sales tax and bonded $6 million to do road projects. Now, hopefully, as time goes on and we get caught up on some of them projects, that's one that should, at the very least, level off. I mean, we're going to have maintenance, but we've set out a 10-year projected.
Right,
So
but-
that should, that's a substantial part of the budget if you look at it.
And to this gentleman's point earlier, also the debt regarding the buildings, the utility costs, things like that, that granted, you know, a new building has debt, right, or utility and maintenance costs, but we also don't have 7 different parcels, we have 1.
Okay.
Right, so it'd be irresponsible for me to say exact numbers, but
Yeah.
but I get your question, but I don't know that I can answer it with hard numbers. Now, did we get anywhere close to answering your question? I'm not sure.
Yeah, the first one, yeah.
Okay.
First one, yeah, and the second one was, what do you do with that, if there is anything left over?
The excess wages, if from budgeted to actual use?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, then you roll over from the budget, yeah, does that get rolled over into the next year? Does that get spent into other uses throughout until the fiscal year is over?
Colleen will do a better job explaining.
If we're under budget on wages and benefits, we're building fund balance then at that point. We don't just say, okay, we're under on this, so let's go spend it on something else. So it would build some fund balance in the general fund, highway fund, or social services, depending where those employees, if we didn't fill a spot in those positions, it would build fund balance in that fund.
Okay, but that can't pay for the levy or anything, that has to go in a fund balance, okay.
Well, it's kind of hard to lower the fund balance or the levy based on which positions don't get filled.
Okay.
Because we don't know that until the position becomes empty.
Right.
It could become a reserve in the future, which could lower the levy in the future, correct? Right.
Yep, could
But
be.
the board at the time would have to, which has happened,
Okay.
would have to decide to allocate those reserves towards lowering the levy. That help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sir, before you leave, what I like about this gentleman's question is that somebody finally referenced the local tax rate chart.
Right.
And with that becomes an understanding of where McLeod County's value comes into play with the taxes that you pay. And there was a time, if I now have it in front of me, in 12 and 13, we were at that 60+% on that local tax rate. And we look at what the taxable market value of McLeod County was, and we were briefly over that $3 billion mark. And then we see a rapid decrease in the tax rate. All the way, it falls from 60% to 51% in just a couple years. Why did it do that? It's not because of the levies necessarily. It's because we gained more value throughout the county. We gained considerable amount of value, about $700 million in just a few years, as the economy got back on its feet. And then, yes, McLeod County's tax rate has been increasing since then. But if you look at our gain in taxable market value, it's not been near as rapid as it was a few years ago. It's been slightly stagnant. So that is where we need to start always looking at where our costs and levies factor into that. But at the same time, where do we start looking to increase the value of McLeod County? If we look at our transportation ideas that we bonded for and that we're designating our local tax, sales tax for, we notice that some of our corridors of commerce have been highlighted in there so that we can hopefully attract businesses and be a place where individuals want to come work and live. That increases our value here in McLeod County. And so as soon as you referenced this graph, I thought, great, it's finally got drawn out that yes, we are increasing, but on the other side of the equation from where our levies at, it's how much value are you applying that to? And we need to be focusing on ways to increase our value here in McLeod County within reason and within planning. And that is one way that we will control how that graph climbs. Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ma'am? Hello.
Hi, I'm Linda Radka, and I live out on Vista Road by Hutchinson. And I have been doing some research as well, just because of the 12.7% increase that I had on my property tax this year. I actually put in the evaluation that you have placed on our home into all the surrounding counties' tax calculators, and McLeod is by far higher than every one of them. And I'm on the county line. If I lived one driveway down, I would pay $1,171 a year less, even at the valuation that my house is evaluated at. I did look up on the internet. It's McLeod County Property Tax Rate 2019 is what it was under. And it states right on the very first page, and it's in red, McLeod County has one of the highest median property taxes in the United States. Not in Minnesota, but in the United States. Out of 3,143 counties, they rank 534th. So we are very high. What?
Where was that on? Where did you see that?
It's the heading on it is McLeod County Property Tax Rate 2019.
That's the website?
It's taxrate.org, 2019 tax revenue. But anyway, the other issue I guess I wanted to make you aware of, I understand it costs money to run any business. But we have been promised, I live on Vista Road, it is in terrible shape. You cannot walk or ride a bike without looking down constantly because you would fall. You'd trip in a crack or a hole. We've been promised year after year that's going to be taken down totally and redone. And every year it gets pushed back because they say they don't have the funding. But yet I'm paying high tax dollars every year to the county. And it just seems like if we're going to pay these kind of taxes, these kind of things should be repaired.
Yeah, thanks for the email, by the way. Did Sue get a hold of you?
Yes.
Okay, good. You're right, Vista has been getting pushed, but I think it's on the I shouldn't say this because it's going to come back to haunt me, but I think it's on the docket for this year, this spring. But we'll check because yeah, it is getting in very rough shape, and that's part of what costs money, right? To fix the roads and to do that, and everybody wants nice roads and they're expensive to do. So But I'm glad Sue got a hold of you, and I appreciate the email, and I appreciate how you presented that to me, because not everybody is as professional and as you are, so I appreciate that. Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the board? Yes, ma'am.
Board, Stephanie Zeta, 230th Street, Hutchinson. Linda brought up a good point about roads. John Bronkhorst said, and our past chair at Acoma Township witnessed at a meeting, that County Road 60 between 15 and Tagus was slated to be tarred within 5 years. And you look at 60 east of 15 and Vista Road, as Linda has stated, those roads are in horrible shape. Our gravel road is fantastic. They grade it on days where it's absolutely perfect. And when I asked John why he wanted to tar this road, he said he wanted to make a good route for farmers who were bringing their produce to the market in Hutchinson. And I asked him who those farmers were, because we're the only one that actually grows food for the public out there, and we don't go to the market. He declined to say. I asked him what his formula is for deciding a road should be fixed or tarred. He didn't give me one. So I looked to the University of Minnesota, which had a comprehensive cost-benefit analysis, which you can find on their website. I could email it to you. I sent it to John. It stated that a road does not begin to pay off until they have 100 vehicles or more. He did a study on our road just the year before, less than 40 cars a day. So I just wanted to bring that statement out there, that when we're talking about roads that are in desperate needs, roads like my own, which is not desperate, why are we even discussing paving a road like that? Thank you for listening. Thanks for listening to us all with such patience. We greatly appreciate the hard work and difficult job that you have in times like these.
Thank you. Your neighbors don't all agree. They put signs up with my phone number on it to pave your road, but that's okay.
I'm talking about money, not agreeing with
No,
people.
I'm,
Money.
no,
Fiscal spending.
I'm, terrible joke. Anyway, yes, sir. Hi, Craig.
My name is Craig Gill, live on York Road in Hutchinson. Just listening to all the comments tonight, I know from a business standpoint, when you're looking at numbers, it's difficult. I'm amazed at the dollars that are generated and given out, but a few good things I take away from this tonight is hearing from the board the challenges that exist. I'd love to see some way that we implement getting back to basics, morals, teaching our kids the right and wrongs to help minimize the impact on the county, the society, and then that's a focus that we all need to take away from this. And two, our second thing is, as a government run, I think local is where we have to start paving the way that we need to make change, that these dollar signs really seem to get out of hand, and medical is one of them, that it's been going up at almost exponential rates, and everyone has to then increase to keep up, and we're coming to a point, it seems, that we can't keep up with the taxpayers. And McLeod County, I think, has a unique situation because it's agricultural orientated, and we compare it to Wright County, Carver, they're growing commercial business and bringing dollars in. We have an agricultural commercial business, and I don't know if you can tax or gain dollars that way. So it's a challenge. I think we all have to look at how we tax and, survive and attract people if that's what we want. So I'm hoping we look at those items and see what we all can do as taxpayers and board members to hopefully make it better for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public wish to address the board? Any other members wish to address the board? All right, seeing none, looking for a motion to adjourn the Truth and Taxation meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Wright, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Szymanski. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Board members, remember we need to go back into closed session once the boardroom clears.